and thank you for tuning in to the Hollywood Reporter's 4th annual Tony's Actor Roundtable. I'm the host, Scott Feinberg, and today I am joined by 5 terrific actors who are giving outstanding performances right now on Broadway. You can still check them out, and we thank you all for being here. All Tony nominees. Let's go around the horn and meet our guests. So, Josh Groban, who's playing Pierre, a stout, middle-aged Russian aristocrat experiencing something of an existential crisis in 1812 Moscow, in the musical Natasha, Pierre, and the Great Comet of 1812. For the purposes of this conversation, the Great Comet, if that's all right.
Sure thing.
Corey Hawkins, who's playing Paul, a con man extraordinaire who convinces a segment of New York society that he's Sidney Poitier's son in the play 6 Degrees of Separation. Ben Platt, who's playing Evan Hansen, an anxiety-riddled loner of a high school student who gets caught up in a web of lies in the musical Dear Evan Hansen. Danny DeVito, who's playing Gregory Solomon, a chatty 90-year-old Yiddish antique stealer who finds himself in the middle of a family squabble in 1968 New York in the play The Price. And last but certainly not least, a returning Roundtable participant from a few years ago, Andy Karl, who's playing Phil Connors, a jaded weatherman who winds up living the same day over and over again in the musical Groundhog Day. Thank you all for being here. It's been a lot of fun catching up on all of your shows. First, I want to say that anyone can jump in at any time.
Okay,
I may
we
point
will.
things.
Not to worry.
Danny, you want to take this one?
Just give him the cards.
But let's establish how you guys, how and why you came to these particular parts. And Danny, I want to start with you.
Yep,
You've been an
okay,
actor
thank
for
you.
50 years.
Yeah.
And yet, The Price, which is a revival of an Arthur Miller play,
Yes.
is the first time that you are on Broadway.
First time on Broadway. I mean, I've walked on Broadway.
Yes.
But I've never been on the stage on
about
Broadway.
time.
What took so long?
I always said, like, while I was out in California doing all that other stuff, people say, why don't you go to Broadway? What's the big deal? And I'd say, the dressing rooms are too small. Well, what are you going to do? Did you ever go visit people backstage at Broadway? I mean, it's like me walking in. Oh, I really love your performance. It's really great. Thank you. Let's get out of here. Let's go eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but I don't know. It's the play, really. You find something comes along like The Price, and you can't pass it up. It's just an amazing play. Arthur Miller, please. I've got Jessica Hecht in the play, and Mark Ruffalo, and Tony Shalhoub. It's like, dream come true, that kind of thing.
Ben, you've been on Broadway before as a replacement at the age of 19 in a little show called The Book of Mormon.
Yes, sir.
But unlike that show and that part, you've been with Evan Hansen from the very beginning.
Yes,
and,
indeed.
I just wonder if you can talk about how actually that was sort of born out of a few rejections. It's interesting.
Certainly. So I auditioned for Pascal and Paul, the composers of Dear Evan Hansen, for a show of theirs called Dogfight when I was about 17 years old. I was a big super fan of theirs, as any theater kid was at the time. All of their videos were on YouTube from Edges and all the things they were doing at Michigan. And so I was really happy to go in for them and was deemed too young. And they reached out to me afterwards on social media and they said, we loved your audition and we have this other project down the pike that we think you're going to be right for. We're going to keep you in the loop. And I was like, that's very kind, but sure. And then I auditioned for Michael Greif as well for the tour of Next to Normal. I was likewise too young for that as well, but another great connection. And then fast forward to the first ever time that we were going to open up and read Evan Hansen at the first table read. They did end up calling me and saying, we think this would be a great match for you. And so I came in and did a cold read. They wouldn't let me have any sort of information beforehand about the piece or the character. They just wanted to see sort of what happened in the moment, and it really clicked beautifully. And so I was able to stay on board for all 3 of the readings and all 3 of the workshops and the DC production, the off-Broadway production, and now at the Music Box.
The whole thing's been like 4 years?
It's been, about 4 years. The writers were developing it for about 3 before that, and then the first time we opened it up was 4 years ago. Yeah.
Amazing. So, Josh, in The Great Comet, which people should know is derived from about 70 pages of War and Peace, you are also making your Broadway debut, and the way it came about is pretty magical. Can you take us back to July 18th, 2013?
Yeah, there's a photo that was captured on Twitter
Yes.
of myself backstage with then the off-Broadway cast, which many of them have migrated to Broadway, and just basically saying this is one of my favorite theatrical experiences I've ever had. Love this show. Please go see it. I saw it in a tent off-Broadway. It was in the Meatpacking District. I was completely enchanted by it. I loved the complicated, beautiful score. I loved just kind of the immersiveness of it and just how exciting it all was. And it was something that I just kind of put in the back of my memory bank as just a great experience. And and so I read on a blog somewhere, I read some on Playbill or something, that they were just kind of thinking about bringing it to a proscenium, about transforming a theater and perhaps bringing it to Broadway. And so I was kind of right at the beginning of making a musical theater album for the first time, which is a really fun experience. And I threw my hat in the ring. I said, I'd never want to wedge myself into a project if it wasn't right, but this has been a dream for a while, and I'd love to meet the composer. At the very least, we'll get drunk and have a good time. And a few drinks turned into a sing-through, and then we realized we had a lot of very similar ideas for the show and for the character, and it all happened very, very naturally. So I'm really very grateful and happy that I waited for the right thing.
That's great. Corey, you previously acted in a different John Guare play at Juilliard, and then
that place.
have also previously been on Broadway before, 2013, Romeo and Juliet. But a lot has happened since that Broadway debut in just a few years. People might have heard of Straight Outta Compton, 24, Kong Skull Island, on and on. Talk about why, when you can really have your pick of things to do at the moment, why did you decide to come back to Broadway?
I don't know, man. I like I said, I grew up a theater nerd, so I was always, actually grew up singing in the church first. Like that was my first love, and then in high school I was in musical theater, and then of course they cut it due to funding, and I ended up just going into straight theater at Duke Ellington School of the Arts in DC. And it's just always been, I just think there's something about coming back to the stage, man, and just sharpening that tool and keeping that muscle firing, you know what I mean? And this play and this character definitely is one of those characters that's sort of like a gymnast or an acrobat or an athlete. Like he's a different guy in every scene. And I just thought it would be fun to do that right after coming off of a TV show. Fun or scary as hell, and why not do it if it scares you? So I just wanted to challenge myself and see where it took me, and I feel like a lucky guy.
That's right. Andy, this show brings you your third Tony nom in 4 years. It's pretty great, and the reason we should I bring this up is that the other two, in some ways, I feel like I wonder if they paved the way for this. First one was Rocky, very physical. Obviously. Then after that, on the 20th Century, where certainly very comedic, and this is, if anything, a great blend of we'll find out how physical later in this conversation, but I believe there was actually sort of a link between each of these shows, right?
Yeah, I sort of feel like that. This was sort of a choice to do as well. Matthew Warch just approached me with Groundhog Day. While I was filming Law and Order SVU, I was like becoming a nice little character on there, and I was like, I don't think I want to do any theater for a while, but it's better be really good if it's going to be something to go back onto theater. And then I got that script, and I was like, oh my God, what they're going to do with this movie and transform it into the musical that it is, and with Tim Minchin and Danny Rubin, who's wrote the original script, it's like everything seemed right. And the character was something I hadn't done before, and it is the culmination of so many different things that I've done to sort of piecemeal everything together. So I was like, okay, and then SVU was like, we're gonna kill you off. So
Everything worked out.
it all, yeah. So
I wondered if that was which came first. Like, did you decide?
I don't know. I'm not in those halls, and I'm not those tables to decide. But that's how I think.
Right,
Yeah. It was one of those things where it's like, we don't know if the season's gonna go. We don't know if your character's gonna go. And I was like, well, I'm gonna make my own choice then. Right. Great, dead. But it was all a blessing, because now, with the Tonys that obviously we're all nominated for, it's just kind of an amazing, icing on the cake.
Yeah. Mm. So for Josh and Danny, as the rookies here at the table for Broadway, I want to ask you, what has surprised you the most about, you've done theater before, but not necessarily here, and I just wonder what sets it apart. And I want to start with Josh, because one of the things we should know for people who haven't yet seen The Great Comet is the way that the stage is laid out is so interesting. Yeah. You have a stage basically sneaking through the entire orchestra to the back of the theater, and then a pit up on the stage around which audience members sit.
Yep.
And it almost feels like a concert. So I just wonder if, what your take on it's been.
Well, there were a lot of things that were very intimidating for me, not to mention the fact that this was the first time I'd done any character live theater work since four shows in a row of Fiddler on the Roof in 11th grade. What a run.
Were you Tevye?
Was that?
Were you Tevye?
I was Tevye, oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
no,
I was
These
gonna
are
get
great.
upset.
it was a fake beard, right? Yes, but I was Tevye. And so, I was nervous going into it as it is, and I think to Corey's point, it was like this feeling of like after 15 years of album tour, like I was really excited by the idea of scaring myself and going into something that was going to challenge me and make me feel like I did when I made that first record of that first tour. And then you add to that like you said, there are people that are just sitting inches from you the entire time, and even if you're not in the spotlight, and Pierre sits there the whole time, they're watching you, and so it was just an amazing exercise in realizing how much you're capable of and how much you're able to break through. I was very nervous about 8 shows a week. I didn't know if it was something I could handle vocally or handle physically. And the muscle memory kicks in, and you find ways of getting more comfortable and confident with people like looking you down very close to you. When we were rehearsing, Rachel Chapkin, our incredible director, would like bring in friends and have them sit near us at New 42 where we were rehearsing. And she'd just say, for this next scene, you are not allowed to look into the ether. Every single word you are singing to somebody's eyeballs. Wow. It's weird at first. But you start to get used to that intimacy, and it keeps you honest as an actor on stage, and it's been great. But it's a treacherous stage, like you said. I've fallen in the pit. I wear a padded suit, so I didn't feel it, but I fell in. And there's a lot of ways to get hurt up there.
Sure. Now, Danny, what about the whole experience, whether it's something on stage or just the effects of it all? What's caught you the most by surprise?
Well, you see, my experience has been, 40 years ago I did Cuckoo's Nest off Broadway, or something, 40 some odd years ago. And, I did a lot of theater and like summer stock and children's theater and stuff like that. Then, being away from it, going to California, you'd think it would be an odd thing, but actually, like, Taxi was like really the training ground for me with the audience, because we did it with 300 people every Friday night. We did it was on film, but we still had the audience to play with. And the way it's cut, we had 4 cameras. It was always, Sunny is different. We don't do an audience, or the crew's the audience, but basically with Taxi, it was, so I felt comfortable with the 11, like the 5 years of Taxi and all that stuff. It was almost like doing off-Broadway, a new show. It was like with an audience. You had new material, but. And then it wasn't until I did the Sunshine Boys in London. That was so much fun in the West End. Neil Simon, again, I do like
2012.
I like to work with these young fledgling writers. People who are
Give them a boost.
Working out
And they love working with
things,
young
and
fledgling
they
actors,
love
too.
that.
Yeah, sure.
And you figure, you give them a little boost. And then, again, it's just a wonderful place to be, the stage. It's really, I feel at home. I feel comfortable there, especially with the people I'm with. And the price, the play is like, the words are just amazing. It's just like it's a phenomenon. That he wrote this in 1967. It's a play that a lot of people haven't seen. They usually see the normal, Arthur Miller plays. This one is a unique play and really fun to do. And I kind of like. I've never experienced the walking through the sets and stuff, and I've never done a musical or but I'd like to someday. But the idea is, it sounds like. It looks like so much fun. I'm having a ball up there in the price.
Let's talk about being the first to play a role on Broadway versus stepping into a role that others have played before. This year, Josh, Andy, and Ben are originating parts on Broadway, and Danny and Corey are in revivals. I want to start, Corey, with you. This was a part that Courtney B. Vance played en route to a Tony nom of his own.
Yeah.
Helped to make Will Smith a star when they did the movie.
Yeah.
Is it intimidating to know that people of that caliber have done it before? And also, as an actor, do you want to see if they have footage of Courtney's performance or go and watch Will's performance, or do you want to stay away from that?
To your first point, yes, it's very intimidating. It's intimidating, but I think, again, kind of going back to, you know, what everyone's sort of speaking to, is just the fun of it and the challenge of it is to take the play, to take the text and to make it your own and find it, you know, your own way. I'd seen the film when I was really young, and I took away certain things from what Will brought to it, you know, the charisma, the charm, the danger, and all of that. But I hadn't seen it since, and I hadn't wanted to watch it, you know, since seeing it back then. And I'm sure there's footage of Courtney doing it, but I'm just like I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. You know, that's the joy of being able to revive a play. You know, Trip Coleman, I think, expertly directed this revival in terms of tone and in terms of just letting us start with the words on the page. And John Guare he was in the room every single day, you know, which can be intimidating, but he's a fun dude. So we get to, like, you know, hear the stories of you know, from back then, and, you know, it's based off of a real character as well. So it's fun to get in there and just play with the text. It's like jazz, you know, you take it and you lift it, and each character is an instrument, and you just kind of bring your own thing to it. And every night, people have been asking me, you know, who is Paul Poitier, who is Paul Kittredge, or whatever he calls himself, whenever he calls himself, you know, who is he? And for me, it's like if I had the answer to that, I wouldn't be able to get up there and do it every night, because you're finding that it's different, like every single day on stage, and it surprises me. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, but you know, it's a joy, man. So.
And Ben, when there is nothing to even have the option of referring to see how somebody else did it, is that itself daunting, or is it actually, my understanding is that in a lot of ways, you guys with the creators, Pasek and Paul and everybody else, have been able to tailor the part to your own strengths and preferences and things like that?
Totally. I think it's both incredibly freeing and also super terrifying. I think that, you know, particularly this character is doing a lot of things that are very morally ambiguous and is not on paper a very easily likable person. And so I think I felt a deep responsibility to make sure that we were always sort of making his intentions really clear and making sure the audience was, like, very sort of tuned in on why he was making each decision that he was making. And I think that the beautiful thing about getting to create it from scratch with these writers is that they have such an incredibly collaborative spirit, and we're really open to sort of my ability to gauge what felt honest in a way that they maybe couldn't as somebody that's on the inside of it, and always sort of took that into account. And so it was a thrilling thing to do. And the fact that we got to sort of have two productions before Broadway gave me the opportunity, obviously on the creative side, to fine-tune it and to really find who this kid was, and to sort of figure out which physical things were really important and which ones were extraneous, but also on a purely sort of physical, technical level, it gave me the opportunity to figure out how to sustainably make this performance happen 8 times a week, because it's the blessing of it is that it's super physically, emotionally, and vocally demanding. And so to have the opportunity to have some trial runs of, you know, how many physical therapy sessions do I need a week, how many voice sessions do I need a week, what diet should I be on, what supplements do I take in the morning, stuff like that, was really nice to have before we got on the Broadway train.
Interesting. Well, Andy, you're in an interesting situation this time and a few times before, because your show is original as a musical, but it's been done as a movie, so people go in there, they have some expectation of what they are going to see, and this was also, of course, the case with everything that you've done, from Legally Blonde to Rocky and other, not everything, but obviously a number of these. Talk about what that's like, where, you know, when you have somebody like Bill Murray and he's playing a jerk, people know that, I think ultimately Bill Murray is gonna, you know, maybe they give him a little more slack before they, you know, they start hating this guy because they know it's Bill Murray. Now, a lot of Broadway fans know you, but it's also, there are gonna be people coming in there who don't necessarily have that familiarity, and does that affect, you know, the way you have to calibrate this guy? You can't make him so irredeemable that, anyway, you get where I'm going.
Well, yeah, but I need to ask Ben for all his, like, physical therapy people and all that, because I'm still figuring that out. So it's, gosh, this 8 shows a week is kind of crazy. But originating the role in London helped out a lot, because it was a matter of, there's such a journey with Phil Connors, because he has to be redeemed at the end of the show. But how far back do I set him?
Right.
And actually, one of the great compliments I get from like friends, family, is like when I first started, they were like, they didn't think at the beginning of the show that I was going to be redeemed. How is this person going to be redeemed? He's such a jerk. And but there was still the fact that it's essentially a comedy. There's so much good writing that Danny Rubin has done to make all the sardonic stuff land really well. And it's like in Taxi with your character. They love to hate him, you know. It's like that's why I was going for. I'm going for that guy. That's like you sort of cheer the fact that he's such a jerk, because you know there's going to be a turnaround at the end. So I just really, for me, because as a person myself, I don't think of myself as a jerk, but that might be an argued point by other people. But I found him, and so in finding that darker part of me to be able to come to the light, because the end of the show is sort of a release of all that, and it's very personal to me when I sing the last song, and I am looking at the audience and I am telling them, you know, let's open our eyes to what really matters in the world, and so. That's just that huge journey to make. So, in saying that, after watching the movie and seeing Bill Murray, and I've seen the movie a million times, I'm sure everybody has. It's like I don't feel like I'm imitating Bill Murray. No. I feel like I've found my own Phil Connors, and I think that's kind of what he was going for in the movie as well. He had to find that irredeemable guy becomes redeemable.
Sure. I want to ask you guys about responsibility. There's a sense of responsibility that you feel when you're up there, because obviously none of these are one-man shows. There's a lot of people that are helping to make it happen every time out. And what is the moment in your show when you feel the most burden about pulling something off, about pulling your weight? Is there a scene? Is there a song? Is there a beat? Just something that you know you got to get right, or you're letting down a bunch of other people. And just jump. We can start with you, Jack.
Sure. Pierre's scenes with Anatole towards the end of the second act are physical. He's really taking him to task. We have a fight call every day, and I definitely feel that the dance of our physicality there, we definitely need to be on our toes, because I'm throwing him around this little pit, and we've got a piano there and a bassist and a drum set, and the main thing there is just I don't want us to miss a beat. Yeah. But also because so much of Dave's writing is like that domino effect. Like it's sometimes very fast, sometimes notes are coming out of nowhere, and you think to yourself, God, how could he have like written this extraordinary, complicated thing? But it's that thing where if you do miss a word, at the very, very top of the first act too, there's a song called Letters, where everybody gets a spot to sing about what they've been doing in their life. Right. And I swear, every single person's solo is more complicated than the next. Mm-hmm. And when you step out the gate, sometimes you get out on stage and it takes you like a few minutes just to acclimate to the energy of the space. But there's no acclimation in that song. You're coming out of those double doors, and I got to jump right into the beginning of this song. And so that's one where I say, please don't mess this up for the rest of the
And
cast.
it's important, particularly because in your show there's so many characters and people are trying to figure out who's who.
It is a very ensemble show, and so we all do feel like we're kind of cogs in this beautiful wheel. And that was one thing that was really important for me for my first time out, was to take on a role and to take on a show where it really was a team effort up there.
And so we should note, I think something like 23 of 33 people in your show, plus the writer and director, are all Broadway debuts.
Yeah,
wow. So
it's a very wide-eyed, bushy-tailed vibe up there.
Corey, what about you? What's the heaviest burden of the show for you?
I think it is something to starting, because Allison Janney and John Benjamin Hickey, who are my rocks in this show, along with this fantastic cast, I'm so thankful for them, because there's moments. Well, they start the play, and we break the fourth wall, and they're talking, and they're sort of recounting this night that they had, where this young guy comes into their lives, this burst of color, this dude, in his pink shirt, Paul Poitier, the son of Sidney Poitier, and there's all this sort of, lead up to it. And then he has to come on and bring that burst of color, and he has to be on, and he has to believe that he is the son of Sidney Poitier. And he...
Who, I won't spoil it.
Well, yeah. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, Scott, come on.
Come see it. No, but it's and then Paul proceeds to go into this huge monologue, this huge thing about his thesis on imagination, which we later found out he didn't come up with
Right,
himself.
right.
But you have to make but but you got to make the audience believe it.
Yeah.
And there's some nights, listen, some nights we're singing and we're just and it's just there and it's just firing on all synapses. But some nights it just isn't. and I'll look over to Allison, who I can always look to, or John, and sometimes they're like,
You're on your own.
you gotta, and then, it's just because it's such a technical show. It feels like we're doing a musical, strangely, because it's it's a tight 90-minute, but it's a play that feels like it has 3 acts, and it's just, you have to Tripp has mapped out this thing, and you have to play the beats in order for the audience to go on this journey and be willing to go on this journey with you all the way to the end.
There is that thing, isn't there, like when you start, though, just kind of when you're in the space of going, well, okay, you realize within the first 5 minutes, what have I got to do to get to the end goal today?
Exactly.
Every day is different. And some days you're riding that wave of just, if I think it, I'm going to do it. And
Right.
if those are like 10 you get, every couple months. And then the other days, you're really kind of in a checklist in your own head of saying to yourself, all right, okay, oh, that's
Here
where
I
I'm
am.
at today.
Yeah.
All right, how are we gonna pull this off?
Right.
And it's a fun thing to climb every day.
Well, so Ben, I want to ask you this as well, and I just wonder if it might also entail sort of how do you shade this guy to the right degree, because there are some morally ambiguous things going on, as with Corey and Andy's character. You don't want to lose the audience. So, but,
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 answers, both that speak to that. The first would be similarly to these guys. It starts really like right out of the bat. It's a monologue and then 2 numbers like back to back, and you have to really sort of get inside this kid's head right away and feel like you know him and that you're on his side, because 12 minutes into the show he does something really terrible, and so. It's, like Josh and Corey were saying, every day is a different sort of vibe and different feeling. It can be anything from like, is it raining outside, to like, are there a lot of old people, to like, everything is, so it's making sure that the main beats of that first few scenes and that monologue and that song are always calibrated to the point where you are deeply understanding where he's coming from and that you can get on his insides before he's doing things that are gonna make you wanna back up. And then I guess the more obvious answer for sort of what is the moment that is sometimes hard to create each night is at the end of the second act. There's a song called Words Fail, where Evan has to sort of confess all the terrible things that he's done, and it's a hugely cathartic number, and it's a lot of crying and screaming and singing, and obviously emotionally it's incredibly important for the people in the audience to deeply understand his remorse and to feel that he knows better than anyone else why it's wrong what he's done, and that his self-hatred is sort of the overlying cause of it all. But also, in a technical sense, it's a tough line to ride each night, to try to not sacrifice any of the beautiful music or the technical of the singing for the emotion, and also sort of vice versa, and sort of finding where that middle ground is.
Interesting. Dan?
Well, for me, I feel, jumping out there is great, and I do have wonderful people that I'm with, Jessica and Mark and Tony. The big thing is, for me, I think if I ever get anywhere that I feel like is unfamiliar while I'm gone, it's always go back to just sit on the play. Because the play is so amazing. Martha Miller's words are, and I've had these 2 experiences, the Sunshine Boys with Neil Simon, and now with Arthur Miller, and I'm really fortunate because you make big choices to come out, and you go extreme and go for it and find character stuff that that he's indicated, and you build on it, and you rely on each other. You're skiing out there together, you're surfing, you're holding on to each other. But if there's ever any kind of like something going awry, whether it's and it is a big thing with the audience too. Sometimes it's like, people are really this way. The audience is changing every night. Yeah. So that's a big part of it with the
Can I interject though? Because we were talking earlier about the fact that I happened to see your show at a performance that I was one of. I think your theater holds 750, and there were 748 other people there who were all like junior high school students.
Yeah.
I happened to go to student matinee, and I was sort of bracing myself on your behalf, like, oh God, are the phone's going to be out? Are the kids going to be wild? And in fact, because of the sort of relationship that is developed between the actors and the audience, it ended up being a great one. So
Yeah, it's a
maybe-
great show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great. It is different. It's always different with the different audiences, but no matter what, no matter how wacky it gets, whether it's candies being unwrapped or cell phones going off, or whatever's
Or
going
gratuitous
on,
coughing.
whatever it is, it's just the thing that you can always do is when you have good material, like a Arthur Miller play, or you guys are all obviously in good, well-written plays. You sit on those words. You find that spot where he's taking you or she's taking you, the author, and you embrace it, and you go with it, and it's. And then you circumvent things and you can play. And like I have this section in the middle where I eat an egg. It's like Solomon is like totally like he's been arguing with Ruffalo and about the furniture, and I'm gonna buy it, and I go and I get the egg, and I say I'm gonna give you a good price, and then I open. He says for everything, and I take out an egg and I crack it with my cane, and hard-boiled egg, and he's. What is this? So that spot right there, from there, maybe, there's a bunch of beats in there that just go off the charts. And you could take that thing and just go with it. The whole rest of the play could be about eating the egg, because I eat the whole egg.
Not everybody spits an egg like Danny DeVito.
No, I spit an egg pretty good. And depending on how nice Mark is to me, I go easy on him. Sometimes, if he's really good to me, sometimes I spit a little.
Right.
If he's like getting on my nerves, I give him the whole 9 yards.
And that student audience loved it because you really gave
Well,
it
and
based
also
on-
there's that. I know you got to know who the audience
Right,
is.
explain it, yeah.
And I give them a little bit more because
A little
they're-
more spin.
Yeah, a little bit more.
You
They
almost
like it.
broke that day. You gave him a lot. Eddie, your moment.
This entire show is like measured out within like a fraction of an inch. So the floor revolves in 5 different directions, and it spins backwards, and it goes, because you're rewinding time, your starting time, the pieces come on. I have to get dressed on stage, tie a tie, no mirror, and do it within a certain amount of counts. So everything is really mathematical, and that's all Matthew Warchus. He's mathematical with emotion, which is really a thing I've never done before. So it becomes very technical in that way. But then I put on my hat of like, okay, you've done this before. You've had to like, do a beat. So I've got all this stuff to do, but you got to wrap that all in like what you're going through that day. So everything has to be coated with that emotion. But there are certainly things that go wrong, and the tie isn't put the way it, and I'm like, and it looks like this long sometimes. But so everybody in the ensemble has to be on a fraction of an inch, and everything sort of has to just meet at the same time. It took a lot of rehearsal to get that. It's very smart in that way, but it's also very complex.
Well, and what I think watching your show is that I know for all of you guys, as great as the show may be, as much as you may love it, 8 times a week of anything that's going to take 3 hours of your time or whatever, it's potentially going to feel a little repetitive at some points. And within Andy's show,
It's easy done. Yeah, no, that's kind of how I found the.
You're in Inception.
Yeah, I am.
Literal
I'm
Inception.
dreaming right now. Oh my God. So yeah.
So, but there is a price to pay for this stuff. When doing something 8 times a week over again anywhere from 90 minutes to 3 hours, and often over the course of months. And it can, I know, be physical. It can be emotional. And I want to ask you guys each a little bit about that, because I think people that go and see you for their 90 minutes or 3 hours may not realize, what is being sacrificed to make that possible. So, Ben, let's start with you. To play this character, there is physical posture, things that you've done to yourself that affect your vocal delivery. There are massive amounts of emotion that you referred to earlier, where and I've been lucky enough to sit close enough to see there's no way to fake this. And in fact, one of the many people who've given you great reviews for this performance is Hollywood Reporter's own theater critic, who however, his one note was that I'm actually a little concerned for Ben because he's going so deep here. I hope he's not damaging himself. So how do you find that line?
It's something that's a daily thing that I think I'm still figuring out. I think that the beautiful thing about this piece and what we all look for as actors is pieces that we want to throw ourselves into and that make us want to give everything to. And I'm so in love with this piece of theater. I've obviously had 4 years to fall in love with it, but I couldn't believe in it anymore. And characters like this do not come around ever, when you get to use all the tools in your belt and really feel sort of the synergy between you and the character. And so I feel a deep responsibility as the person who's sort of administering the story every night to give it at the same level each night and to have the people that come have the same experience that they're having every night. But I've had to, come to terms with the fact that I'm a human being and that days are different, and there are some days when things are there and some days when things aren't, and there are days I feel better than others, and it's the kind of role that has definitely taken over my whole life. As I alluded to, I have very strict regimens as far as eating and sleeping and therapy and all of that, and so it is a sacrifice, but it's one that the experience is all the sweeter because you're making it, because you're earning every last drop of it. And I think, we've been open for 6 months now, so maybe let's talk again in another 5. But so far so good. I'm just really trying to take it one day at a time and let each show be its own experience, and try to maintain that level of decorum. I will say that I have 7 other actors on stage with me. It's a really tight-knit cast. There's the 8 of us, and everybody is really, really giving of themselves, and nobody's holding anything back, and sort of there's no vanity. And so if there are days when someone needs to be lifted up, there are 7 other people to lift you. It's pretty great.
Danny, you're playing a guy 20 years older than yourself. What do you have to do to make that work?
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. No, it's cool. I come in a little early and do my makeup and put some spots and a lot of things on, and hands, and I'll do all the fun stuff, teeth, change everything about myself. And it's like really cool because the great experience is like that you come early, you stay late, you're in there on those 2 show days. I mean, but the first thing I do when I'm finished with the first show and on a Saturday, the matinee, or a Wednesday, is I go right into my pajamas. I got a little room right there I'm very close to the stage. They were kind enough to give me a note. I have no steps. Right. I'm really cool. And I just go in and dig in, and I lay there and wait for the next one to come around, and it's just so much fun.
Did I hear you also use a trampoline?
I have a trampoline. Yeah, I have a little one I got online. It's like a small one I have a little bathroom, and I jump on that. It's really cool to get the lymph and the blood and everything going, rather than doing. It's simple exercise for me. It's low impact. And it's really kind of nice and gets you going. Yeah. I do it without my costume. Then as I add the layers of clothes, I keep doing it until I'm finally standing back there in my overcoat, my hat, and my cane, and the whole thing. I have a Kandinsky, like a beaded curtain, because it was, my character was born in 1879, and so Kandinsky was like in the turn of the century. So I have him up, and he's Russian. Now anything that's right now, eat lox and bagel, have chicken soup and anything to get you into the mode. It's really fun. And I'm looking forward to. We only have a week left. It's like really harsh. We're finishing up. But it's been a great ride, a lot of fun.
I'm gonna show up with the trampoline.
It's like we're all like a vision that's immediately going on.
Just
Amazon
ordered it under the
later.
table.
It's like a $25 item, and they deliver it, and it folds up, but I leave it open. It's like it's little, and I lean it up against the wall so it doesn't take up a lot of space. But then whip it down, ready to go. Get so worked up, and you're gonna be with it. Yeah.
Josh, you have as referenced earlier, a fat suit, and you have a complicated stage. And I did not mention that there are a lot of stairs on that stage. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're aside from, and you're playing the accordion. You have to learn to play the accordion. There are physical aspects of this that might not be obvious to somebody also.
Yeah, you start to really learn to be much more in tune with what your body needs, and you start listening way more to your yourself as far as just what you need, and you do feel guilty sometimes about just wanting to throw on pajamas and do nothing. Broadway has been hell for my social life. I can't wait to say yes to things again. But
Cheers to that.
but at the same time, like, you know, you start to realize very quickly what is needed of you out there, and I think every one of us has roles that need different things. And so for me, you know, because I know I'm going to sweat a lot out there, I try to hydrate, you know, because I know that the singing style that I have out there is very different from the singing style that I have when I'm doing a concert. I have to warm up in a certain way that I know I can be healthy and do that 8 times a week. And like you said, the stairs, you know, as soon as you feel a tweak, you know, I try to nip it in the bud, just try and find ways to stretch or whatever, and just because, you know, it's a lot, and it's something I've never done before, and so you know, but to Danny's point earlier, I think the really cool thing about when you feel like you maybe have taken it to a point where you're feeling uncomfortable, or you're feeling like you're overdoing it, or you're feeling, is that I think we're all so grateful that when the words are great and the notes are great, after you do 100 or 50 or whatever it is, there is that feeling of that you can go back to just resting on the work.
Exactly.
And sometimes after 100 shows, you find new things when you finally like let go of the control or the thing you know you've been doing every night, so you somehow think I got to keep doing that. It's those nights sometimes where you're feeling so tired, or that you can't physically do that thing you were doing 2 weeks ago, and you have to go back to the basics, that you actually find a new thing, and it's.
That's like with the cast I have with Mark and Jessica and Tony. I do a lot of things that are a little unconventional. Like, for instance, you know, there is that thing called blocking. You know, that all the directors give you what? And I, you know, and so like, like early on we started doing that where, you know, they know that what's gonna you know, they can tell that in a second something's coming that's a little different. So I may be on the other side of the stage saying that line. As long as you're aware of where the lights are and stuff. The stage people don't. The stage manager doesn't really get panicked. But you know, I do.
Gotta get you in a musical,
up.
Danny.
Yeah, I do change up the.
There's one unpredictable actor in every show. That's you. That's you, my
That's
friend.
the guy who's.
Everybody's on guard.
Just make sure they know that he's not always going to be in the same place.
Now, Corey, you have something that the other folks here in these particular shows do not, which is the absence of an intermission. How does that affect you and your pacing? And I mean, you're also playing a guy who is shot out of a cannon, as you say, talking a mile a minute, doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
So what is that? Do you miss an intermission, or do you like that you go right through it?
I love being able to get to the bar quicker after the show. I think kind of. No, it's interesting with this play because it really does feel like, you know, it starts out as a dinner party, you know, and the audience is sort of trying to figure out this Upper East Side world of art and Kandinsky's and, you know, and then it turns into this farce, this who did it, you know, who is this guy? And then the third act of the play, the rug gets pulled out from under you and you realize, you know, or you think you realize what went wrong. But for me, he's just, if I don't think this play could sustain if it had an intermission, because there's the ride that Paul is on. I mean, like I said, every scene he's a different character, and emotionally, it can be so taxing to go out there and really have to, you know, commit to being this person and fooling this person, and it's horrible, some of the stuff that he's doing. But again, it's that theme of redeemability, and actually I'm hearing that for the first time, how present that is this season, actually.
Seems that way.
Yeah.
It really does feel very potent, and but again, I think it just goes back to, you know, it goes back to relying on your cast and relying on the script. I mean, it is
Stopping and starting is like is tough too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
especially if the kind of play you're in. You know?
Yeah.
We have a thing in The Price where Terry Kenny directed it. There was a indicated place. Miller says that the play could be 90 minutes. Yeah, I mean, you could do it if you could do it in 2 hours. You never do it in 90 minutes. So but he said you could use no intermission or intermission. And where Terry broke it, it's kind of cool because it's like a freeze frame in a movie. It goes black when Tony Shalhoub enters, and in a spot, and they haven't seen each other in 16 years, Mark and Tony. And I've got money in my hand. I'm selling buying the furniture, and there's a blackout. And then we stumble out on stage, which is like really hysterical, to get back into those spots in the blackout. You know what I mean? The first month of that, but I luckily have a cane. So I'm like whacking, trying to find furniture going on the way over. And I just pray to God that people in the front row are not listening to what I'm saying while I'm going over there, bumping into footstools and stuff.
Before we close with a fun thing we call rapid fire, I do have to tee up what is in some ways the craziest of the physical situations we have to talk about this year, which brings us to Mr. Karl. 3 days before your opening night, second act, one of your last previews. Can you share with us what physical thing you dealt with?
I still haven't actually emotionally dealt with all this, so talking about it is a lot of things going on. Because with the show, I've been to the worst part of it and the best part of it, because we're all here today doing this, which is a really great part. But 3 days, 72 hours before opening night, I did something on stage that I've done a million times, but a leap. But this time I tore my ACL completely, went down, crawled off stage, sobbing, knowing that it was all over. I felt like it was all over. I hate talking about this, but the great thing that I realized with the piece and talking about relying on the text and everything is that the last song that I sing in this show is all about having seeing the people around you for the first time with open eyes and not having any sort of preconceived notions, but also seeing that they can lift you up. So when I knew I had to go out there and limp or whatever, just get out there with a cane and I could borrow your cane sometime.
Andy won't be doing the trampoline for a little bit.
Sang that last song called "Seeing You." Tim Minchin is a genius that way, and the audience was part of it. I could just look all around, 360 cast behind me, and all of a sudden I had this hugely cathartic moment of just, this is what theater is all about, and this is where I'm supposed to be, and this is how I'm supposed to be. Went to the hospital later. They told me the bad news. Got into physical therapy, and somehow made it on stage 3 days later, limping with the cast. Here's a really interesting thing. I'm gonna pat myself on the back. I'm like, how do you act when you have a big brace on your leg? Because I was like trying to think, how am I gonna get the audience to not look at that? But then I relied on the text, I relied on the comedy, I made a joke out of it. I was like, hey, aren't you curious? And it was one of those moments where everybody's with you, and it's also, you work with what you got, you know? I think there's so much to all that, and it was my Karate Kid moment. So.
Ethel Merman's words have never rung true, or whoever wrote "There's no business."
There's no business like show business, and the show must go on. So I've had plenty of examples in my life.
Well, it's amazing, and what we're going to do now, very quickly, just the first thing that comes to your mind. Any of you, please immediately jump in. We are the first most unusual ritual before a show, after a show, or during intermission. We've heard the trampoline. That's a good one. Sets a high bar. Anybody else?
Dentures.
What's that?
Dentures.
Dentures.
You take them out or you put them back
I take them out. I put them behind. I put them behind my.
Got it.
Behind my.
You wedge them behind your couch.
My couch.
So young.
I get a fiberglass cast put on every day before the show, like full socket net and everything, and then at intermission it gets sawed off with a Dremel. So I have to do that.
That's a real
Real ass cast every
Wow,
night.
real.
I was thinking like it gets stuck after the first
Because he's got to write on it, so it has to be a new one every night.
Oddest thing in your dressing room.
All the dolls that I made of my character.
Oh yeah.
A deer that's dressed like Evan Hansen, who's Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh yeah.
Very good.
Thoughts about entrance applause, like it or not?
There was a time where I was getting entrance applause, but there was a really great lyric that I had to sing. Pointless erection, which I don't want people to miss. So the director asked me to wake up a little earlier and pick up the phone, just in case there was. It was sort of like after the Olivier and the Tony.
I have strangely like the weirdest thing because people clap for Allison Janney and John Benjamin Hickey, and they come on a lot earlier, and then I come a quarter of the way into the play, and people are like, confused. I never know what to
in
do.
the
with it.
price, Arthur Miller built in a wonderful thing for Solomon, which is we come up a staircase to this attic where all the furniture is, and he's got me coughing. It's in the script. It's just Solomon comes up the final fifth floor. He's out of breath and he's coughing. And the first line in my scene is Mark saying, "Can I get you some water?" And so that helps out with because we don't really have to start the scene. Let them applaud.
Right.
Then it
Yeah.
Most annoying thing audience members do.
Phones.
Sorry?
Phones.
Phones.
People's faces illuminated by phones, thinking that I can't see your blue face. Like, I can see your blue face.
Right.
And we talk to the audience, and I mean, we like literally are talking to you. and you-
notice the
I know there are other things, guys. Come on.
For
don't
me,
hold
for me,
back.
it's when somebody says, "Hey, Josh," or
Hey, Josh.
if I just like finish my big 11 o'clock number and somebody underneath goes, "Great one, Josh." Like,
I am that character. Yeah.
like,
Movie
come on, like,
musicals.
let's-
Yeah.
Always the movie transfers usually have the lines that everybody knows,
Right.
so they'll say them with you.
We're so proud of you,
And
Andy.
we got rappers
Well,
and things like that.
the one annoying thing that happened to us a couple of times in the show, and everybody shares this. But we come out, like I said, for the second act, for this the other end of the blackout. So you have the blackout. We all stumble off stage. We get back in the dark, and it's fine. But in the middle of the blackout, somebody's got a flashlight. You're trying to get into a blackout so the audience get the effect of a blackout.
Sure, yeah,
There's
sure.
somebody out there with a flashlight helping you on stage. You go,
I hear him up there.
What?
We're hearing
do
you
on
curse
your
with your cane.
off
but-
day?
Sleep,
Sleep.
baby.
Silence.
I do Hollywood.
Number of performances per week you wish your show offered.
7? I would take 7. I mean,
2. You've seen it.
I take 9. I would do 9.
Oh, right.
Danny was earlier.
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Well, can you
Limited engagement.
Well, limited engagement. If you do
Yeah,
9,
sure.
you get out earlier?
Right.
No.
Okay, non-friend or relative whose attendance at your show has meant the most to you.
Hal Prince.
Harry Belafonte.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Singing about a comet for Neil deGrasse Tyson was really cool. Yeah, that was fun.
Cool.
Singing the word parabola into his face was.
Debbie Allen.
Okay, that's a great.
There you go.
Yeah, the original Rita from Andy McDowell from the movie.
Oh, Andy
She
McDowell.
was-
I was there. I was so, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, biggest thing Hollywood can learn from Broadway. Just a succinct.
Strangeness is successful and powerful
Stay
and
weird.
interesting.
Community.
Yeah, family.
And
Teamwork and discipline.
last but not least, what you would be doing if you were not an actor.
Be a pilot.
Nice. That's good.
Still want to try.
Hairdresser.
Hairdresser. Previous career. huh?
I'd probably restore houses. That's what I do.
Carpenter.
Yeah.
Good.
Cantor, I think, at a
Cantor.
synagogue.
Yeah.
I always want to be a veterinarian. I was always finding things wrong with our pets before anybody else. Like, oh, Max has a splinter in his right paw. It's fine. I'll take him to the bathroom. I got this. Yeah. We had James Harriet.
Guys, thank you so much for doing this. I know we were just established that an off day is a precious thing, so thank you for sharing with us and congratulations.
Thanks
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.